For a 2003 movie, Head of State is an oddly evergreen and prognostic piece of media for our current 2025 political landscape. Written, directed, and starring Chris Rock, Head of State tells the story of a black man from DC that is chosen to run for president as a ruse to influence future elections. The movie takes place in 2004 during the presidential election and follows Maze Gilliam. So basically, Maze Gilliam, Chris Rock's character, is an alderman for the 9th Ward of Washington, DC. An alderman is like a low-level politician that helps the city make decisions in their area. But Gilliam is more than that. He's kind of a local hero in his neighborhood.
Around here, when people have a problem, they don't call the mayor, they call me.
From the start, Gilliam is rescuing old ladies from buildings designated to be demolished and generally just sticking up for his neighborhood. Although he's a local success story, Gilliam is unwilling to change his hood mentality and play the game so that he can realistically move up in politics with the bigwigs. This character trait is at the detriment to his finances and his relationship with his girlfriend.
What's going on?
I'm leaving you, that's what's going on. You know, the only reason I ever accepted this engagement ring from you in the first place is because I thought you had potential. I thought you wanted more, Maze! Why can't you just play the game, Maze?
Who, to be honest, is just a clout-chasing no-good bitch, so no real loss there. Meanwhile, the 2004 election is in full swing, but the incumbent president and vice president's planes crashed into each other, leaving the Democratic Party with very little time and options to find another candidate to run. It's the funniest part of the movie, like... Their planes crashed together. That's some Breaking Bad shit.
Interrupt the Jay-Z song to bring you this special bulletin. Presidential candidate Senator Sam Gaines and his running mate General Olsen James were both killed today when their planes crashed into each other over Virginia.
Since the party considers the election a wash, they come up with a plan to run any minority to gain public goodwill that will help them win the next election in 2008.
The smartest thing we can do is be the first party to nominate a minority for president.
How about a cripple?
I don't think so, Charlie. Now, we'll lose, of course, but the minorities will be happy. The minorities will be happy and they will vote for us in 2008 because we've shown we support them. And the white people will vote for us because our guy isn't black.
You got my vote.
It's pretty despicable, but if you have been paying attention to American politics in the last decade or even century, you know that political parties think in the long term, and presidential elections are popularity contests, and even more recently, they're all about who can troll the other side the best. The party decides on running Maze Gilliam after seeing his heroics on the news. Obviously, they don't tell him that he's actually being set up to lose, and Gilliam agrees to run.
We'd like you to run for president.
Of what?
The United States.
Of what?
Of America.
Which America? North!
This is when we enter the second act and Gilliam starts his campaign. Oh yeah, and each act break has a little musical breakdown by Nate Dogg and is low-key just an awesome choice.
Here's a story about a man, an everyday man, a man with a dream to be the head of state.
I'm convinced that this movie started out as a musical because they only licensed like 2 songs for this movie, and all original music is from Nate Dogg breaking down each act. R.I.P. Nate Dogg, by the way. On another musical note, a running gag is that 03 Bonnie and Clyde is the only thing that plays on the radio in this timeline.
We now return you to the Jay-Z song already in progress.
There's also this little moment and a couple references to the Diddler as well.
Look at you. Grow up, you gotta dress better. Even Puff Daddy wears a suit to court.
I told you that we won't stop. I told you that we won't stop. I told you that we won't stop.
So the movie really hits its stride when the Gilliam campaign starts. He's introduced to his staff, including but not limited to a look-alike in case of a shooter.
This is your decoy, Maze Jr. He enters all of your events before you. If anything's going to happen to you, it'll happen to him first.
You know, Tupac could have used a guy like you.
They have assigned him a woman that will sleep with him on command to limit any possibilities of sexual deviance.
Now, what does she do?
She sleeps with you. We got tired of getting caught up in sex scandals, so we commissioned our own team of super whores.
You call yourself whores? Move that fat ass! 1, 2, 3!
These girls are good.
But most importantly, Gilliam meets his chiefs of staff, who are meant to keep him on the right track to make sure he loses the election in the most beneficial way possible. The chiefs are played by Lynn Whitfield and Dylan Baker, and they are a pretty fun duo. They represent an interesting dynamic in the movie because while they have been given this task to make sure Gilliam loses, they start to get swept up in the prospect of him actually winning and genuinely become his biggest supporters. Lynn Whitfield plays Deborah, a black woman in this white male-dominated space, and she comes across as a reluctant antagonist. Her reluctance to help Gilliam win the election plays on this racial dynamic where she inherently kind of like looks down on him because he's from the streets.
Do you think they would have chosen an ignorant ass nigga like you?
Deborah is a fun character, but when it comes to character arcs, it gets kind of messy. They start the campaign by setting up a fundraiser at this schwanky house party filled with all the prude old rich people that you would expect to frequent these types of events. Gilliam's chiefs of staff just want him to pander to the people and raise some money. However, Gilliam, with his solid nature, turns the party up and he's suddenly DJing the event, getting these prude people to tap their foot and do the electric slide. It really does feel like a comedic relic of the early 2000s. Like, what? White people enjoy rap music? That's absurd and hilarious.
My garden party has been ruined, but I'm beginning to tap my foot.
Gilliam's ex finds out that he's a presidential candidate and crashes the party to try and get back together with him, starting a running gag where she's taken away by security.
I can't decide whether we should have a DJ or a band. DJ band, DJ band, DJ band. Security!
While the fundraising event was successful, Gilliam's chiefs of staff would prefer if he would just stick to the script. So they go all across the nation to these rallies where he just glazes everyone while smothering his own personality under platitudes. Nothing too major, just kinda regular political rally stuff. Gilliam does this until his campaign makes a stop in Chicago, where he gets some advice from his brother to be himself. Maze's brother, Mitch Gilliam, is played by the legendary Bernie Mac. R.I.P. Bernie Mac, by the way.
This ain't you. You gonna say this shit? This shit is booty. You go out there and say this if you want to, watch Sandman come sweep your butt off stage.
So inspired by his brother, Gilliam gets on stage and speaks from the heart to huge success. Honestly, the parts of this movie where Chris Rock is just on stage giving a speech about political problems are the strongest written of the movie.
You worked for 35 years. You thought you was gonna leave your kids a will. Now you gonna leave them a won't. How many of you work in a city you can't afford to live in? That ain't right.
Get your hand out of my pocket.
I think it just speaks to Chris Rock being in a stand-up element and his stage presence. I'm willing to bet that Chris Rock just wrote a bunch of stand-up material on politics and they just filmed that.
You got nurses that work in hospitals that they can't even afford to get sick in. It ain't right. It ain't right. It isn't right.
So Gilliam's campaign starts to gain major traction when he starts following his own path. He starts reaching out to the outcast American people to build his following. He goes to a daycare to talk about childcare, a players' ball to talk economics, and a pride event to talk about equality, which for 2003 is kind of righteous. Gilliam also shifts the look of his campaign in the style of a certain music mogul of the 2000s. He diddies up, is what I'm trying to say. He diddies up? What the fuck am I talking about? Why did I write this?
Oh, I've always said I wanted a wedding in a church, but lately I've been thinking about the botanical gardens. We could do it by the tulips. Oh, it'll be beautiful, Nate. Security! Tulips!
This is when the other candidate, Brian Lewis, played by Nick Searcy, starts going on the offense. It's kind of funny because Nick Searcy plays a very Trump-like figure, and I checked to see what he is up to lately, and this dude is literally glazing Trump's balls 24/7 on Twitter. It's kind of wild. Like, bro, take a damn break. You're on Twitter way too much. So the back and forth between the two candidates is pretty devious.
This is the White House without Maze Gilliam. Peaceful, isn't it? Now this is the White House if Gilliam is elected.
Maze Gilliam. He's for cancer. Vote Brian Lewis for president. It's your last chance.
Cancer lover!
Hi, I'm a Klansman. I love Brian Lewis.
And in the midst of all that, Deborah reveals the actual plot of the political party. Gilliam finds out that he was never supposed to win, and this pisses him off, so he fires both of his chiefs of staff. But It's a pretty short-lived plot point because there's not much of the movie left and they all just apologize and they just get back to it by the end. In 10 minutes, I feel like. Speaking about irrelevant plot points, I guess I should also mention Gilliam's love interest in the movie, Lisa Clark. What can I say about Lisa Clark? She's just a hard-working gas station clerk, and she's the complete opposite of his clout-chasing ex, but she has basically no influence on the plot at all, so moving on. So Gilliam gets his brother Mitch, Bernie Mac, to run as his VP, and I love the moments we see Bernie on the campaign trail. Bernie is just entertaining as fuck.
Are these your bags, sir? Look at my shoes and look for the bags. Shut up and follow me.
After a few rounds of trading political commercials, Gilliam starts pressuring Brian Lewis to an actual debate. After a lot of delay, Lewis agrees to a debate that takes place the night before the election, which would actually be amazing to watch if that were to happen in real life. During the debate, Brian Lewis uses his catchphrase, "God bless America and no place else."
And I just want to say today, God bless America and no place else.
God bless America and no place else.
Which is very much in line with the Republican Party's America First rhetoric. So Gilliam flips that for a more progressive tone and advocates that America should be the shining beacon that tries to improve the welfare of impoverished people around the world.
If America was a woman, America would be a big titty woman. And everybody loves a big titty woman. How about God bless Jamaica? I'm not talking about Jamaica, the beach, try y'all love. I'm talking about stabbing Jamaica. That's what I'm talking about.
The crowd goes nuts. Everyone claps. The election is the next day, and Gilliam's staff and his brother are working hard to get as many votes as possible. Instead of campaigning, Gilliam decides to fulfill a promise to an old dude from the beginning of the movie that I forgot to mention. Basically, a bus line was being shut down in DC, and Uncle did not have any other way to get to work, so Gilliam promised that he would personally drive Unc to work if it came down to it.
And I promise you this, if they shut down this bus line, I will drive you to work myself.
By the end of the movie, the bus line is shut down, and Gilliam drives his campaign bus and gives a ride to everyone in his old neighborhood. It works to Gilliam's benefit because, it's just a cool thing to do, right? So the votes are counted and the election comes down to one state in the Electoral College.
This looks like it may come down to California.
This looks like it may come down to California.
This looks like it may come down to California.
And it's California, which I just think is kind of funny because California hasn't been red since the 80s, and I don't know if it was ever the deciding and last vote in a presidential election. But guess what? Gilliam wins and becomes the first black president of America. Yeah, go fuck yourself, Obama. Okay. Is Head of State a perfect movie? Absolutely not. But does it deserve its 30% on Rotten Tomatoes? Absolutely not. I think my biggest criticism of this movie is that Mace Gilliam does not go through any type of character arc at all. He's saving old ladies from explosions from the start, and any inconvenience he faces is because he's not being himself. But it's not like he ever gets caught up in not being himself, you know? Maybe if he was going to sell his soul to some rich benefactor to win the election and has to remember where he came from by the end of the movie or something like that, but nothing like that happens. He actually never needs to change the way he thinks throughout the movie, and more often everyone else around him needs to change to his worldview.
What are you doing here?
I know you got no reason to trust me, but I'm asking you to.
In the beginning, Keith David's character plays a lawyer that tells him he has to look the part, and he hits him with that Diddy comment.
Even Puff Daddy wears a suit to court.
So at the end of the movie, Gilliam wears a suit to the debate, but don't worry, it's a FUBU suit, so you know he's still cool.
By the way, nice suit.
Baba?
FUBU.
He was wearing FUBU at the start, but now he's wearing a FUBU suit. That is the biggest change he has to his character. Another thing that I noticed is that the character Deborah, who initially doesn't take Gilliam seriously because he's kinda hood, by the end of the movie when she fully accepts who he is and supports him, her hairstyle changes from straight iron to naturally curly, and what the fuck? What were they even going with that? Okay, so yeah, basically Chris Rock wrote and directed a movie where the character he plays is just always so awesome and funny that he literally brings America together and is elected president. But at the end of the day, it's a fun 1.5 hour movie, and I think it holds up. Solid 7 out of 10 for me, to be honest. It's also very interesting to me that the main joke of this movie, its pull, is haha, what if a black guy became president? Literally, the next election that actually happened in real life, that became a reality. I remember watching this with my parents when I was like 9 years old, and I remember laughing my ass off with the idea of, yeah, a black president will never happen. They would shoot him.
Okay, let me get this straight.
So at the very least, this movie is a touch point of American political messaging in 2003. I can watch this movie and get to say, look how things have changed. However, like I said in the beginning, this movie is oddly evergreen with the political issues that Gilliam has to deal with. There's a part where each candidate goes to a school that just experienced a shooting. Brian Lewis comes in with thoughts and prayers while Gilliam tries to discuss why a school shooting would happen in the first place.
What do you expect? They act like us. We're bombing countries all the time. If I was 12, I'd probably have a gun too.
Tell me you didn't say that.
And Gilliam almost loses the election because of that. A major part of Gilliam's campaign speeches addresses wealth inequality and medical care. I mean, you don't have to be politically focused to know these are problems in America that have only multiplied in the 2 decades since this movie came out. So when I say this movie feels evergreen, let me vaguely describe a plot for you. The incumbent presidential candidate is not running, and the new candidate has a short time to gain traction with a new campaign while also juggling cultural biases. Okay, so take that plot. Am I talking about the movie Head of State or the 2024 presidential election? There are parts of this movie that are meant to be played as absurd, but come across as milquetoast compared to the election we just had.
Mace Gilliam has been out, driving people to work.
Damn it! Why didn't somebody around here think of this? Why am I not out there driving a damn bus or something? Give me an SUV or a minivan or a bus or a scooter or a motorcycle or a rickshaw. Give me some wheels, bitch!
But I keep on thinking about Bernie Mac. You know, Bernie died on August 9th, 2008. That means he died just 3 months before he got to see this movie fulfill its biggest joke. I mean, Bernie still got to tell some jokes to Obama's face that ended up getting him in a bit of trouble, and that's kind of cool. When I say that this movie is evergreen, I not only mean that for me as I'm typing this segment out in 2025, I mean that for everyone on the other side of time too. The first movie portrayal of a black American president was probably that of Sammy Davis Jr. in the 1933 film Rufus Jones for President. I'm referring to Wikipedia right now, don't judge me. In Rufus Jones for President, a 7-year-old Sammy Davis is told by his mother that anyone can become president and later dreams of his own inauguration. I just wanted to point out that there is a long list of media that envisioned a black president before Head of State was ever thought of. As far back as black media in America has been preserved, there has always been a dream of a black president. Head of State just happened to be one of the last pieces of media to come out before that dream came true. And that's pretty fucking funny.
Vibe like carnival. They bite the style like the cannibals. Run wild like I'm Hannibal. African general on the prowl with his animals. One for the history books in the midst of the dish that this misery cooks. Felt safe in the beautiful paintings we made that adorn the remains of the castle's decay. These ain't verses, these are almanacs of the days of the half we were paid for the parts that we played. So we stuck up to the back while they guarded the gates.
What I'm saying is this though.